Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of Harmony Station, her fingers absently tracing the delicate peace lily brooch on her collar, standard issue for the diplomatic corps, though few knew it doubled as a quantum encryptocom device. Through the mammoth view screen, the swirling purple atmosphere of Nexus Prime painted the deck in ethereal light, a fitting backdrop for the most significant interspecies summit in human history. Her son Kai pressed his face against the transparent aluminum, his breath fogging the surface. "Mom, look! The Centauri ships are doing their spiral docking pattern again." Inside voice, "Sweetheart," Sarah reminded him gently, though her keen eyes tracked the crystalline vessels as they performed their elaborate approach. The Centauri were notorious for their theatrical displays of superiority, even in something as simple as docking procedures. Their ships twisted through space like exotic dancers, trailing prismatic energy signatures that Sarah knew were actually complex scanning patterns. 10 years of maintaining her cover as a mid-level diplomatic attaché had taught her to appreciate such details. The Centauri weren't just showing off, they were mapping every centimeter of Harmony Station's outer hull, searching for weaknesses. They would find none. She'd made sure of that. "Ambassador Chen." A melodic voice chimed from behind them. Sarah turned to face Xerxa, her Arcturian assistant. The tall, silver-skinned being's neural tendrils flickered with patterns of professional courtesy. "The pre-summit briefing begins in 20 minutes. "Thank you, Xerxa." Sarah smiled, the expression practiced and perfect. "Kai, time for you to head to the education pod." "But Mom, we're learning about Drachnid history again," Kai groaned, though his eyes sparkled with hidden meaning. Education pod was their code for his advanced combat and survival training, disguised as standard xenological studies for diplomatic children. "History is important, especially today." Sarah squeezed his shoulder, 3 quick pulses, their silent signal for heightened alert. Something about the Centauri's scanning patterns had triggered her instincts, honed through years of covert operations before she'd been selected for this deep cover assignment. As Kai trudged off with theatrical reluctance, Sarah fell into step beside Xerxa, reviewing the day's agenda on her datapad. The upcoming summit would bring together 17 spacefaring species, all seeking to establish unified protocols for expansion into the recently discovered Gamma Quadrant. Humanity, barely 2 centuries into its stellar age, was seen as a minor player. The perfect cover for Sarah's true role. "The Centauri delegation has requested a last-minute addition to their security detail," Xerxa reported, neural tendrils pulsing with concern. 40 additional personnel. "Approved," Sarah replied smoothly, though her mind was already calculating. The Centauri's standard security rotation was 36 guards. 40 new ones meant they were bringing in specialized operatives, likely their infamous crystal blade infiltration units. "Please ensure they're all issued standard visitor credentials." The credentials would do more than grant access. They'd tag each Centauri with nanoscale trackers that reported directly to Sarah's secure network. Let them think their elaborate docking dance had revealed Harmony Station's secrets. Sarah's hidden defenses ran far deeper than any scan could detect. She paused at the entrance to the diplomatic wing, adjusting her brooch. "Xerxa, please inform conference security that we'll need additional refreshments for the increased Centauri presence." The coded message would alert her hidden team to the potential threat without raising suspicion. As she entered the briefing chamber, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The Centauri, like most species, saw humans as diplomatic newcomers, physically weaker, technologically inferior, and politically naive. They would never suspect that humanity's greatest strength lay in being underestimated. The chamber filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Sarah took her designated seat, positioned deliberately in the sightlines of 3 different security cameras she'd personally installed. The Peace Lily brooch recorded everything, feeding data to quantum-encrypted servers that only she could access. Ambassador Krell of the Centauri swept in, his crystalline exoskeleton refracting light across the chamber. "Ah, the human representative," he said, mandibles clicking in what his species considered a polite greeting. I trust your species is prepared for today's discussions. The complexities of Gamma Quadrant expansion protocols can be challenging for younger civilizations. We're eager to learn from more experienced species, Sarah replied, her tone perfect in its diplomatic humility. She didn't react as her brooch detected the subtle scanning beam emanating from Krell's exoskeleton. Let him think his scans showed nothing more than a simple recording device. As the briefing began, Sarah's mind worked on multiple levels, taking notes, engaging in discussion, while simultaneously analyzing the behavioral patterns of every being in the room. The Zentari security personnel were too still, their movements too precise. The crystal blade units were already in position, though for what purpose, she hadn't yet determined. Her quantum comm chirped softly, a message from Kai's training supervisor. The young one's progress continues to exceed expectations. Today's lesson, adapting human reflexes to zero-gravity combat scenarios. Sarah allowed herself a moment of maternal pride. Kai wasn't just her cover, he was her partner in this mission, trained from birth for this role. While other species focused on raw strength or advanced technology, humanity had learned to turn its perceived weaknesses into advantages. Speed over power. Adaptability over specialization. Intelligence over force. The Peace Lily brooch recorded everything, its quantum processors analyzing micro-expressions and pheromone patterns that even the most advanced alien sensors couldn't detect. Something was building beneath the diplomatic pleasantries, a tension that Sarah recognized from years of covert operations. The Zentari were planning something. But that was fine. Sarah Chen, hidden guardian of humanity's interests, would be ready. After all, being underestimated was all part of the plan. The diplomatic summit was 3 hours in when Sarah's Peace Lily brooch registered the first anomaly. Microscopic fluctuations in the station's power grid, so subtle that even Harmony's advanced systems hadn't detected them. She maintained her facade of attention as Ambassador Krell droned on about resource allocation rights, but her mind raced through the implications. The Zentari crystal blade units were making their move. And furthermore, the human delegation must understand that established species have natural priority in colonial expansion. Krell's mandibles clicked with barely disguised contempt. Your kind simply lacks the experience to. The chamber's lights flickered, nearly imperceptible. Sarah counted, 1, 2, 3 pulses. A standard crystal blade signature. Ambassador Chen. Xerxa leaned close, neural tendrils dimming with concern. Are you well? Your heart rate has elevated slightly. Sarah allowed a small frown of manufactured worry. Just a headache coming on. Actually, would you mind checking on Kai? He hasn't been feeling well either. The coded message would reach her son instantly through their secure network. Kai would know to activate Emergency Protocol Sierra 7, appear vulnerable while preparing for imminent threat. Of course, Ambassador. Xerxa rose gracefully, neural tendrils pulsing with dutiful patterns. As her assistant left, Sarah noted how the Zentari guards shifted positions, their crystalline armor catching the light in ways that would have seemed random to most observers. But Sarah wasn't most observers. Through her brooch's quantum sensors, she detected the nanoscale trackers she'd planted on the Zentari security team converging on key points throughout the station. Engineering. Life support. The main computer core. Classic takeover methodology, except for one detail that made Sarah's pulse quicken: they were deliberately leaving the escape pods accessible. They weren't planning to destroy Harmony Station. They were planning to capture it. A subtle vibration in her collar signaled an incoming message from Kai: Education pod secure. Instructor says I'm excelling at today's zero-gravity exercises. Translation: he had secured their backup weapons cache and was ready to move on her signal. Sarah allowed herself a moment of fierce pride. Her son might only be 10, but he had been trained since birth for moments like this. While other children played with toys, Kai had learned to turn any environment into an advantage, any seeming weakness into strength. Ambassador Krell's voice cut through her thoughts. Perhaps we should take a brief recess. The human representative seems distressed. Excellent suggestion, Sarah replied, injecting just the right note of relief into her voice. The atmospheric calibrations in here must be slightly off. A subtle dig at Zentari pride in their environmental engineering. As the delegates filed out, Sarah noticed how the crystal blade units had positioned themselves, 3 at each exit, 2 monitoring the environmental controls, and 4 maintaining a casual but precise formation around the main conference table. Their crystalline armor would be nearly impenetrable to standard weapons. Good thing she didn't rely on standard weapons. Her brooch picked up a sudden spike in quantum communications, heavily encrypted, but she recognized the pattern. The crystal blades were receiving their final orders. Sarah sent a brief message to Kai as she stood, "Remember how we used to play hide and seek in the station's maintenance tunnels?" His reply was instant, "The narrow spaces where bigger players can't follow." "Ready when you are, Mom." Sarah smoothed her diplomatic robes, fingers brushing against the hidden panels where her advanced weaponry lay concealed. The Peace Lily brooch continued its silent surveillance, mapping every crystal blade position, every power fluctuation, every subtle shift in atmospheric composition that indicated the Zentari were preparing to deploy their notorious crystalline gas weapons. They thought they were being clever, using a diplomatic summit as cover for their takeover. They thought their superior technology and physical strength guaranteed their success. Most of all, they thought the human representative and her child were the perfect hostages, weak, vulnerable, and easily controlled. Sarah allowed herself a small smile as she walked toward the conference room's refreshment area. Let them think that. Humanity's greatest victories had always come from being underestimated. Through her quantum link, she sensed Kai moving into position, using the maintenance tunnels they had spent years memorizing together. Unlike the Zentari's crystalline bodies, human children could squeeze through spaces barely half a meter wide. Another weakness about to become a strength. Ambassador Chen. Krell's voice carried artificial concern. Perhaps you should visit the medical bay. You seem unwell. Sarah turned, noting how the crystal blade units had completely sealed off all major exits. Their formation was perfect, their timing impeccable. By any standard tactical analysis, the situation was hopeless for a lone human diplomat and her child. Actually, Ambassador, Sarah replied, her fingers brushing her brooch in a precise pattern that would activate every hidden defense system she had spent years planting throughout Harmony Station. I'm feeling much better now. The lights flickered again, 1, 2, 3 pulses. The crystal blades signaled to begin their operation. Sarah's smile widened slightly. Perfect timing. Because that was the thing about humanity that other species never seemed to understand, when backed into a corner, when facing overwhelming odds, when all logical analysis suggested defeat, that's when humans were at their most dangerous. And Sarah Chen, hidden guardian of humanity's interests, had been planning for this moment for a very, very long time. The crystalline gas began seeping through Harmony Station's ventilation system exactly 3 seconds after Sarah activated her brooch's countermeasures. To the Zentari, it would have seemed like perfect execution, their notorious paralytic agent, designed to incapacitate every being on the station. But Sarah had spent years analyzing its molecular structure. The advanced filtration system in her diplomatic robes, disguised as ornamental threading, neutralized the gas before it could reach her lungs. A bold move, Ambassador Krell, she said calmly as other delegates began slumping in their chairs. Though perhaps a bit obvious. The Zentari leader's mandibles clicked in surprise, the first genuine emotion he'd shown all day. You should be unconscious. Should I? Sarah glanced at her datapad, seemingly unconcerned as crystal blade units moved to surround her. Like how humans should be too weak to resist. Too primitive to detect your infiltration. Too naive to prepare. Through her quantum link, she sensed Kai moving through the maintenance tunnels, placing the devices they'd spent years hiding throughout the station. Each one no larger than a thumbnail, but containing technology that would make the Zentaris' crystalline weapons look primitive. Enough games, Krell's exoskeleton flashed with aggressive patterns. You are alone, Ambassador. Your security forces are paralyzed. Your child is helpless. Harmony Station belongs to the Zentari now. Sarah allowed herself a small laugh. Let's discuss your tactical errors. First, assuming I'm alone. She pressed a hidden pattern on her brooch. Throughout the station, atmospheric scrubbers she'd secretly installed began purging the crystalline gas. Second, believing your scans showed everything. Another pattern, and quantum-shielded panels in the walls slid open, revealing weapons that even Zentari technology couldn't detect. And third, she continued, watching Krell's mandibles twitch as his perfect plan began unraveling, your most critical mistake, threatening my son. The crystal blade units moved with lightning speed, their crystalline armor glowing as they prepared to strike. But Sarah was already moving, her diplomatic robes falling away to reveal combat gear far more advanced than anything the Zentari had seen. Now, Kai, she sub-vocalized through their quantum link. Throughout the station, precisely placed devices activated. Concentrated electromagnetic pulses, tuned to the exact frequency of crystalline neural networks, caused the crystal blade units to stumble. Their supposedly impenetrable armor became a prison, trapping them in mid-motion. Impossible, Krell hissed, his own exoskeleton crackling with disrupted energy. Our intelligence said you were nothing more than a diplomat. Your intelligence was designed to see what we wanted you to see. Sarah moved with fluid grace, disabling the nearest crystal blade units with precisely targeted strikes at their armor's quantum-level stress points. Humanity learned long ago that appearing weak is often the greatest strength. Through the station's cameras, she watched Kai emerge from the maintenance tunnels, using his small size and quick movements to evade the few remaining functional crystal blades. He reached the environmental control center unopposed. After all, who would suspect a child? Mom, his voice came through their quantum link, primary system secured. Initiating Protocol Omega. Execute, Sarah confirmed, allowing herself a moment of maternal pride. While other children his age played video games, Kai had learned to hack alien security systems and navigate zero-gravity combat scenarios. Not because she forced him, but because he understood the importance of their mission. Throughout Harmony Station, hidden systems came online. Quantum-encrypted firewalls locked down every system the Zentari had tried to infiltrate. Specialized containment fields activated, trapping the crystal blade units in bubbles of energy tuned to their own crystalline frequency. You see, Ambassador, Sarah said, watching Krell's mandibles twitch in frustrated recognition, humanity doesn't need to be the strongest, or the most technologically advanced. We simply need to be the most prepared. The station's regular lighting returned as emergency systems reset. Around them, other delegates began stirring as the last traces of crystalline gas were purged. Sarah's brooch recorded everything, proof of the Zentari's attempted takeover, evidence that would reshape galactic politics. Your kind, Krell spat, his crystalline exoskeleton dimming in defeat, are supposed to be primitive. Weak. Sarah smiled, remembering all the years of preparation, the careful cultivation of humanity's harmless image, the patient waiting for their enemies to overreach. No, Ambassador. We're simply very, very good at letting others underestimate us. Through the station's windows, she could see Zentari ships attempting to dock, no doubt carrying reinforcements. But Kai had already activated the quantum shield grid, another, impossible, technology they'd kept hidden until needed. The message would spread quickly through the galaxy. Humans weren't the weak, primitive species everyone thought. They were something far more dangerous, patient predators who had learned to appear as prey. And as Sarah watched Krell being secured by newly awakened security forces, she knew the real work was just beginning. Because now that humanity's mask had slipped, now that their true capabilities were revealed, the galaxy would never underestimate them again. Perhaps that was the greatest victory of all. The Centauri backup fleet has breached the outer defense perimeter, Kai reported through their quantum link, his fingers dancing across the environmental control station's interfaces. 18 vessels, Mom. Crystal-class destroyers. Sarah nodded, though her son couldn't see her. Just as we expected. Ready for Phase 2? A soft chuckle came through their link. You always said the best trap is the one they think they're avoiding. The Centauri ships approached Harmony Station in their characteristic spiral pattern, their crystalline hulls refracting starlight in dazzling displays. To most observers, it would have appeared beautiful. To Sarah, it was like watching a school of predators circling wounded prey. Perfect. Ambassador Krell, she addressed the restrained Centauri leader, perhaps you'd like to warn your fleet? Save some lives. Krell's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. You managed to surprise us once, human. But those are crystal-class destroyers out there. Each one could reduce this station to atoms. Could they? Sarah's fingers brushed her brooch, activating deeper layers of hidden defenses. Kai, remember that game we used to play? The one with the mirrors? Through the station's cameras, she watched her son grin. Mirror maze protocol activated, Mom. The space around Harmony Station shimmered as thousands of quantum holographic projectors activated simultaneously. Suddenly, instead of one station, there were dozens, each one a perfect replica, down to the quantum level. The Centauri fleet's spiral pattern faltered as their sensors were overwhelmed. An impressive trick, Krell admitted, his crystalline exoskeleton dimming slightly. But our sensors will detect the real station eventually. Sarah smiled. That's assuming there is a real station to find. On her command, Harmony Station's quantum displacement drive, technology the rest of the galaxy thought was centuries beyond human capability, activated. The entire station shifted slightly out of phase with normal spacetime, becoming effectively invisible and intangible to conventional weapons. Fun fact about human children, Sarah said conversationally as she watched the Centauri fleet's confusion through the station's quantum-enhanced sensors. They love hide and seek. Kai and I spent years playing it throughout this station. He became quite good at not being where people expected him to be. The Centauri ships fired, their crystalline energy beams passing harmlessly through holographic stations. Each shot revealed more about their targeting systems, their response patterns, their tactical algorithms. Data that Sarah's brooch recorded and analyzed, feeding to the station's defense grid. Now, Kai, she ordered. Throughout the station's maintenance tunnels, passages too small for crystalline beings to access, quantum pulse generators activated. Each one emitted a precisely calibrated frequency, harmless to most species but devastating to crystalline technology. The effect on the Centauri fleet was instantaneous. Their beautiful spiral formation collapsed into chaos as ship after ship lost power, their crystalline propulsion systems reverting to inert mineral structures. Amateur mistake, Sarah commented to Krell. Assuming that because you couldn't detect a weapon, it couldn't exist. Humanity learned long ago that the deadliest predators are the ones you never see coming. Through their quantum link, she sensed Kai moving to the next phase of their plan. While the Centauri fleet drifted helplessly, microscopic nanobots, disguised as ordinary maintenance drones, attached themselves to the ship's hulls. Within minutes, they would have complete control of every vessel. Your species, Krell's voice carried genuine bewilderment, was supposed to be centuries behind us technologically. Our intelligence was exactly what we wanted it to be. Sarah began transmitting evidence of the Centauri's attempted takeover to every major diplomatic channel in the galaxy. Humanity learned from Earth's predators. Sometimes the best defense is to appear harmless until the perfect moment to strike. The station's regular lighting returned as emergency systems reset. Around them, other delegates who had been paralyzed by the crystalline gas began stirring, just in time to witness humanity's true technological capabilities. Mom, Kai's voice held a note of pride through their link, all Centauri vessels secured. Their crews are contained, and I've accessed their primary databases. You won't believe what I'm finding about their other operations. Sarah allowed herself a moment of fierce joy. Her son hadn't just played his part perfectly, he had exceeded every expectation. While the Centauri had dismissed him as a weak human child, he had systematically dismantled their entire fleet. You see, Ambassador, she said to Krell, whose crystalline form had dulled to a defeated gray, humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology, or our tactics, or even our ability to appear weak. It's our children. Because while you were watching for adult threats, my 10-year-old son was becoming the most dangerous being on this station. Through the quantum link, she sensed Kai's happiness at the praise. But there was work still to be done. The galaxy was about to change dramatically, and humanity's carefully cultivated image of harmless newcomers had been shattered forever. Perhaps that was for the best. After all, the most successful predators don't need to hide once their prey knows it's too late to escape. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so silent. Representatives from 17 spacefaring civilizations watched as Sarah's evidence played out on the quantum displays, crystal-clear footage of the Centauri's attempted takeover, followed by humanity's unprecedented response. As you can see, Sarah addressed the council, her diplomatic robes restored to perfect order. The Centauri's actions constitute a clear violation of the Gamma Quadrant Colonial Accords. Not to mention attempted mass murder. Kai sat quietly beside her, appearing every bit the innocent child despite having just helped neutralize an entire battle fleet. Through their quantum link, she sensed his amusement at the other species' shocked expressions. Ambassador Krell, now formally under council custody, stood with his crystalline exoskeleton dulled to a defeated gray. The human speaks truth. We underestimated them. Gravely. The Arcturian High Commissioner's neural tendrils pulsed with intense patterns. This technology, the quantum displacement drive, the holographic replication fields, the crystalline disruption systems. Your species claimed to be centuries away from such developments. We claimed many things, Sarah replied smoothly. Just as many of you claimed to respect galactic law while secretly supporting the Centauri's expansion plans. Her brooch had recorded everything, every backroom deal, every coded transmission, every conspiracy to keep humanity confined to a small corner of space. The council chamber erupted in overlapping protests and denials. Sarah let them continue for exactly 30 seconds before activating her brooch's next revelation. Above the council table, quantum holograms showed evidence of a dozen different species' attempts to contain, control, or eliminate humanity's growing influence. Mom, Kai whispered through their link, their neural patterns are showing extreme stress. Should I activate the calming protocols? Not yet, Sarah replied silently. Sometimes the truth needs to hurt before it can heal. The Drachnid representative, their scaled hide shifting colors rapidly, spoke next. You had all this evidence, this technology, these capabilities, yet you waited. Why? Sarah smiled. Because humanity learned something important during our brief time among the stars, the greatest power isn't in showing strength, but in choosing when to reveal it. Through the station's quantum-enhanced sensors, she detected multiple fleets approaching Harmony Station, species responding to the Centauri crisis. But this time, they moved with cautious respect rather than predatory intent. The galaxy stands at a crossroads, Sarah continued. Humanity could respond to these revelations with anger, with retribution, with the full deployment of technologies you never suspected we possessed. She paused, letting the threat sink in. Or we could move forward together, as true equals, without the pretense and prejudice that brought us to this point. Kai straightened in his chair, playing his role perfectly. Mom always says that strength isn't about who can hit hardest, but about who can choose not to hit at all. The chamber fell silent again, but this time with thoughtful consideration rather than shock. Sarah's brooch recorded the subtle shifts in posture, the changes in pheromone patterns, the microscopic tells that indicated species after species reassessing their view of humanity. We propose a new addition to the Gamma Quadrant Colonial Accords, Sarah announced. Complete technological transparency between all signatories. No more hidden weapons, no more secret research, no more assumptions about any species' capabilities. She smiled. Humanity will lead by example. Through their quantum link, Kai sent a simple message: they're afraid of us now. No, Sarah replied silently. They respect us. Fear fades. Respect endures. The Council's vote was unanimous. Within hours, the new accords were signed, and the galaxy began shifting toward a new era of genuine cooperation. The Zentari conspiracy had failed, but it had achieved something its architects never intended: a true understanding of humanity's place among the stars. As Sarah and Kai prepared to return to Earth for debriefing, she reflected on the changes they had set in motion. The galaxy would never again see humans as primitive or weak. But perhaps they would learn what Sarah had known all along, that true strength lies not in the ability to dominate, but in the wisdom to choose peace when war would be easier. Ready to go home? She asked Kai aloud. Her son grinned, every bit the normal child despite being one of the most technologically advanced beings in known space. Can we get ice cream first? Sarah laughed, a genuine sound that carried through the council chamber. Let the other species hear it. Let them wonder how a civilization could be simultaneously so advanced and so human. Let them learn what the Zentari had discovered too late, that underestimating humanity was the last mistake anyone should make. Because in the end, humanity's greatest strength wasn't their hidden technology, or their tactical brilliance, or even their ability to appear harmless. It was their capacity to rise above victory, to choose peace over power, to remain fundamentally human even when they could be gods. And that, perhaps, was the most powerful revelation of all.